Now, Eskom says stage 1 load shedding will continue until 9 o'clock this evening. The power utilities reinstated power cuts after workers picketed over salaries. Spokesperson Khulu Phasiwe joins us now in studios. Khulu, how's it going so far? Is it still going to carry on until 9 o'clock tonight?
Things are not looking good at this stage. We still are going to continue until 9 o'clock in the evening. The reason for this is that there's a lot of instability at our power stations. We still continue to see acts of intimidation, with people being dragged out of minibuses and buses that are taking them to power stations, and some of them being intimidated in their own houses. So clearly things are not looking good, which is why we're saying we are likely to have the continuation of this kind of threats, including over the weekend as well.
So that's the big deal, though. The weekend is going to be even more concerning for people who are going to be at home enjoying what's supposed to be a long weekend for some. Some have taken time off to go to the coast. And how will they be affected by it? Well,
and obviously within the interior of the country, we are expecting a cold front which is going to sweep through starting from later this evening. Things are not looking good, to be honest with you. We are not making any guarantees that there will not be load shedding. We are saying the risk is still high because our people's efforts to go into power stations have been hampered by those who are blocking them in terms of trying to get into the stations. As a result, we cannot guarantee that there will be enough supply over the weekend.
So let's talk about the number of staff you've had at work over the past couple of days since this picket, it was supposed to be a picket, started on Wednesday.
Well, today the numbers are looking much better than yesterday, actually. So today we have, in terms of the calculations from HR, we have close to 60% of the workforce back at work. We have, in many areas at least, a semblance of stability, but the problem is that in some isolated power stations, we still have those sporadic incidents. So some of the people, unfortunately, that went into our power stations today, they did not go there with what I will call good intentions. The feedback we are getting from the power station managers is that some of them actually are the ones who had caused this incident, where we had multiple trips of some of our units, resulting in the implementation of load shedding.
What happened to your backup plan?
Well, the backup plan depends on the availability of people. If our people are being intimidated at their houses and also being blocked off from entering the premises, clearly that plan will be hampered.
So have you not employed freelancers, temporary workers, because you knew there was the strike coming? They've been arguing about it for a long time now.
Well, out of the 47,000 people who work for Eskom, about 18,000 of them belong to both NUMSA and NUM. So clearly the majority of people are either not unionized or don't belong to these two organizations. So if you have the majority of people who are available and ready to go and work, and they're being intimidated by the few, clearly we have a problem there. We also have contingency measures, by the way, that we have taken some of the people from other power stations so that we can bolster the ones that are adversely affected. But unfortunately, the issues of intimidation are causing big problems for us.
Now, you know how strike action works, Khulu. You've been in this industry for years. You know that there will be acts of intimidation. So given that the country's power supply is at risk, you would expect that you'd have a plan to deal with that.
Well, yes, as I say, plans are dependent on the availability of human beings to actually activate them. If those people are being threatened at their houses, and some people telling them that we know where your wife works, we know where your kids go to school, clearly all of these things are having a bearing on our ability to fulfill our mandate in terms of making sure that we keep the lights on.
Did you bring this upon yourself by denying this increase to staff and now come out and say, okay, we're open to it?
Well, it was never our intention to willfully just drag the process just for the sake of it. Management is on the record as saying that our books are not where they should be in terms of the finances, so we need to do something in terms of turning the company around. The biggest challenge within Eskom is our cost. We have such big costs, and our revenue is not growing. So management was proposing that let's improve efficiencies and productivity so that possibly next year around this time things would be much better, and then we can start negotiating for a better deal.
And that's why workers said it wasn't them to blame for the problems at Eskom. It was the executives who were cheating the system, who were giving dodgy contracts in the first place. So why should they be punished? Why did it take you so long to realize that?
Well, we don't see it as punishment. The reality on the ground is that the money is not there. And the management would be, I would say, failing in their job really if they were to promise things that would not be sustainable. They can use whatever money is available now and promise that they're going to adjust salaries or even pay bonuses. But if you are not able to sustain it, then it's actually shooting yourself in the foot. So the proposal which is sustainable is the improvement of our bottom line so that we can see what we can do in the new year.
So how do you go into these talks? What can you offer?
Well, management has been in discussions with the Minister of Public Enterprises, and the board also has been meeting, including today. So they are coming up with some mechanisms. I'm sure by the beginning of the new week, as we prepare for the meetings through the CCMA, there will be something that they will come up with.
A little too late, though, because it has consequences on the country already with load shedding.
Well, unfortunately, yes, we have this incidents where people are intimidating others, and then obviously, as you correctly say, the implementation of load shedding. But at least there are some efforts to make sure that at least we resolve this impasse.
I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that, because Eskom has done so many things wrong in the past couple of years. You'd expect a new board to get something like this right. I mean, this boils down to staff, how you treat them, and whether you think about the long-term impacts of how you treat members of your staff. Well,
obviously, the new board found some of the problems here, and they're trying to clean up, essentially. So some of the problems, like the unions are also complaining about the wage disparities between men and women, and also between black people and white people. Those things have been there, and the gap is trying, or at least the board and management are trying to sort of close that gap that has always been there. But all of these things take time, and they cost money, and money is not there.
Khulu, tell me what your executives are earning on average.
Well, at least the information which is available in the annual report, which is out there, I think on average, many of them are earning just over around 3 million rand a year.
3 million rand a year to run a power utility, run it incorrectly, and now lead to load shedding again because you couldn't deal with your staff, your workers, and what they wanted. Which, by the way, is something normal in South Africa. Annual increases in this country is not out of the ordinary. You need to prepare for that.
Well, the issue about them, especially in relation to the specific incidents of load shedding. It is not unlike 2008 or 2014, where essentially the problems were around the lack of plans or some of the mitigating strategies that could have averted load shedding. This one, you have people who are entrusted with running power stations. They go there and they trip things. So clearly that one has nothing necessarily directly to do with management. Obviously management have the overall responsibility. But if you task someone to go into a power station to make sure that they continue to ensure security of power supply, and they switch things off, that thing has nothing directly to do with management.
So outside of contracts, coal supply, getting companies to do their jobs, management still has a responsibility with human resources and how they treat staff. What they did not do in this case has an implication on the country, and that is load shedding.
Well, which is why now management is saying, we have heard what your concerns are. We are willing to sit down and find a resolution through an independent arbitrator, which is this matter, hopefully very soon. We do have a date which has been communicated to Eskom, but we do feel that it's way too far because it's around July. We would like the CCMA to see if they can find another date soon, possibly next week, so that we can resolve this matter as soon as possible.
But what I'm saying is that you should have done it in the first place. Now we're at a stage where we're load shedding because you have unhappy staff, because you refuse to budge initially.
Well, Shahan, the issue of budging, actually, I suppose it's a wrong word. If you have nothing to offer and you are open enough to show your books to the unions and say, this is where we are, based on the reality that we have at the moment, there's not much we can offer you. Suffice to say that if we do improve our situation, then we can all have a better, I would say, discussion at a later stage once we have improved our efficiencies and also our bottom line. So we'll see. Now that management has met with the board and also the minister, and hopefully very soon with the Minister of Energy and other interested parties, I'm sure something will be worked out.
That 3 million rand salary on average for your executives is something that's going to stick in my head for a long time, because I'm wondering whether they even deserve the 3 million when they can't handle a wage dispute in the company, and it now leads to load shedding, which affects millions of South Africans.
Well, Shahan, that one clearly it's a matter that the board of Eskom will have to deal with. All I know is that people have contracts that they negotiate with the employer, and it has to be approved by the board. And the board, and also partly through the Ministry of Public Enterprises, have agreed to those. That's all I know at this stage. As to whether they deserve it or not, it's a story for another day.
Yeah, but the question is, what's going to happen now with load shedding? How many days, more days, are we going to see this happen for if you have workers who are unhappy?
Well, obviously, the issues around load shedding are going to depend on the availability of people who are able to go into our power stations. If the intimidation stop, then clearly there will be some stability, and then we can start making sure that we keep the lights on.
So from next week, what do you reckon is going to happen?
Well, all of these things are dependent on the people who are stopping others from going to work. If it continues, clearly we're going to continue to have this kind of difficulties.
If it's sabotage, are you taking action against these staff?
Well, so far we have 18 people who have been arrested already, so the police are taking this matter seriously. So we are hopeful that we are going to see an end to this kind of sabotage activities, but at least from our end, where we are able to send people to go and repair some of the things that have been tripped down deliberately, that has happened. But you need this kind of thing to be consistent, meaning that you need people who are readily available to go and make sure that we repair where we are able to do so. Unfortunately, where you have threats and intimidation, it becomes very difficult.
All right, thank you for your time, Khulu. Appreciate it. Khulu Phasiwe from Eskom.